In this video, we're going to be going over Linux Fundamentals Part 1. Part 1 really acts as the intro to Linux section. Part 2, we dive a little bit deeper into Linux, and Part 3, we dive even deeper into Linux. And by the end of the 3-part series, you'll have a fairly good understanding on Linux operating systems. But this is all on TryHackMe. You can work through these rooms if you'd like on your own. There are some practical exercises as well, and that would be a great way to be able to test your knowledge, so I highly encourage you do that. But with all that said, let's jump right in. First, let's go over a bit of a background of Linux, and they talk about the background of Linux here on TryHackMe. If you're not already familiar with Linux, it's an operating system that is utilized in just about every facet of your life, whether it's point of sale systems, oftentimes corporate networks run on Linux, IoT devices more than likely run on Linux. And the reason is Linux is just a more lightweight operating system than other operating systems like Windows or Mac OS. It's also easier to customize because it's open source, which means anybody is able to make changes to the operating system to fit their needs, as opposed to Windows or Mac OS, where if you want to make a fundamental change to the operating system, you might be out of luck. Now, there are many different flavors of Linux. If you're watching this and you're part of the cybersecurity crowd, then you're probably familiar with Linux and Kali Linux and Red Hat and some of the other security-centric distributions of Linux. However, everybody should be familiar with Ubuntu, which is a good general-purpose distro of Linux. CentOS and Apache are also great utilizations and deployments for Linux. But for this room right here, what we really want to understand is who invented Linux and when. And we can credit Linus Torvalds as the main creator of Linux back in 1991. Now, on the next tab, if you're following along, you'll have an opportunity to be able to deploy a Linux server and connect to it in your browser. So go ahead and do that right now. Now, the real power of Linux can be unlocked whenever you understand the command line interface, or the CLI. And there are some very basic commands that we're going to learn right now off the top to be able to know how exactly we can interact with our environment. And TryHackMe gives us two separate commands right here, echo and who am I. Echo will quite literally echo a string that you give it. So for instance, if you echo quote, who am I, it will echo, who am I? That was a terrible example because of the next command, who am I? If you type in, who am I, the CLI will reply with the user account that you are currently logged in as. Go ahead and put those answers down into the answer box. Now, how is it exactly that you can navigate the file system? Because whenever you open the CLI, you're actually sitting at a specific point in the Linux file system. To figure out where exactly you are, you can type in PWD. That's short for present working directory. And it will tell you the path or the exact location in the file system that you are at now. You can type in LS, or short for list, to be able to find the different files or folders that exist in your current location. And then you can do CD or change directory to be able to change either backward, forward, or into one of the files in your directory. CD ... actually will take you back one directory. You can also change your directory to a specific location. So if you know the file path of a specific directory you want to go to, you can do CD and then type the path of that directory you want to go to, and you will go right there. Next is cat, and that really, and the full name here is concatenate, and that will basically view a file that you have permissions to view. So for instance, say there is a note in your present working directory called mynote.txt. You type in cat mynote.txt, it will pop up, hello world, hi file. Now let's try searching for files. Say that there is a specific file on your machine that you're looking for right now and you don't know how to find it. In comes the find command. This command is so handy because it allows you to be able to find pretty much anything that you are looking for. For instance, if you're looking for a file with a specific name, you can find it. If you want to find files with a specific permission set, you can find that as well. There are a number of different flags that you can put with the find command. You can see that right here on the screen. But basically, all you need to know is that you can type find -name and then type the name of the file you're looking for. Find -name like button. Next, we're going to talk about grep, and this is also a very handy command. Grep will basically search the output of your previous command or search and look for something specific that you give it. So the example here in TryHackMe is you're looking through access.log, and it's going to have a ton of different logs in that log. So say you're looking for a specific IP address like the one it shows here. You can grep the IP address as a string, and it will search that access log and then show you all the different lines that IP address appears in. Pretty handy. There's also a flag that you can find in this room. So so I'll let you find that. Next, let's talk about shell operators, because these can also be a powerful tool to be able to use on the CLI to really extend the power of your command. For instance, here we got and then we got some less than sign or greater than sign, whatever those are. I'm not good at math. The single and command will allow you to run the command in the background. The double and will allow you to combine the commands. The single greater than sign will actually redirect the output of your previous command. For instance, say you want the output to be input into a TXT document or something like that, then you can use this operator to do just that. And then you can use the name of the document you would like that output input into. Output, input, input, output, output, input. Whatever. The double greater than sign actually will append the output to whatever's in the document. So if you use a single greater than sign, it will actually delete everything in the file and replace it with the output of your current command. If you use a double greater than sign, it will just append it to the end of the file. Important differentiation. And that is pretty much all you need to know about Linux Fundamentals Part 1. On the last video, we talked about some basic commands that you can use, but generally on every command, there's a series of flags and switches that you can use to be able to also specify your command a bit further. For instance, we're talking about flags and switches for the list command, or ls. You can do ls-a or all, and it will also list the different hidden folders, which are folders that have a dot in front of them. You can also type in the command that you wish to use, -help or -h, and the output will be basically all the different flags and switches that you can use in your command. That's a handy tool that you can use if you're brand new to a command and you're trying to figure out your way. There's also what's called the man command or the manual command, and that will show you basically the help manual for any given command. Next, let's talk about some more commands that you can use in Linux to be able to interact with your file system. Say you want to make a document. You can use the touch command. So touch and then the name of the file that you wish to make. You can also make a directory. So you can type in mkdir or makedir, and then you'll be able to make a directory. You can also copy things. So cp or copy, and then the name of whatever you wish to copy. You can move things, so mv or move, the name of whatever it is you wish to move, and then the destination. You can also remove things, so you can type rm and whatever it is that you want to remove. Word of caution on this, sometimes you may not have permission to remove specific items in a directory. And so if you have sudo permissions, you might have to pull out sudo with rm. And in other cases where it's a directory, you might also have things inside that directory that might also need to get deleted as part of this process. But you can also recursively do that with the remove command, but I'm going to let you find that out by typing in rm-h in your CLI. Next, you can type in file, and that will really show you what type of a file something that you search for is. Next is permissions, and it's important. This is generally across most operating systems. There are 3 different types of permissions: read, write, and execute. If you have permission to read something, then you can open a file and read it. You can access the information. If you have permission to write to a file, then you can actually write things and delete and manipulate the file however you want. And if you have permission to execute, then you can execute different executables or programs or applications on a system. Not everybody should have all 3. And that's really where IAM or Identity and Access Management come in. And that's kind of a routine process. That's where a lot of the full-time jobs for sysadmins and net admins, that's really a lot of what they're doing is they're manipulating people's permissions to be able to make sure that people don't have too many permissions and people have just enough permissions to be able to get their work done. There's also something called sudo, and that allows you to basically run commands as an admin. Now, not every user will have full sudo permissions. However, some users might have more sudo permissions than they should, and that is how attackers are able to escalate privileges. That is a whole can of worms. So comment down below if you want to see me dive into that a bit more in a later video. Finally, it might be helpful to know how to switch users, and that's where the su command comes in. Su, the name of the user that you want to switch to. It is that simple. That said, you need to have permissions to be able to switch users. But whenever you do that, you will actually be able to switch over to that user and inherit their permissions level. Next, let's go through some common directories. /etc, that's going to have quite a lot of stuff in it. Really, all of these will, but Etsy sure is. /etc stores a lot of important files in your operating system. There's also quite a lot of cool tools in /etc, so feel free to take an exploration trip down there. /var basically stores a lot of the frequently accessed files by applications in the operating system. /root is the home folder for the root user, and the root user is the top dog. They have all the permissions, full control over the operating system. So really, you should not be running things as root, because if you break something, it's broken. You've broken it. And then /tmp or temp. And that's basically a temp file that stores random stuff that you might need to have in a given session. But it's not permanent, it is cleared out. So that is Linux Fundamentals Part 2. To this point, we've learned a lot about how to interact with and navigate through the file system. But let's say you want to edit something inside of a document and you want to edit basically the contents. That's where text editors come in the terminal. Now there's a number of different types of text editors on Linux, but the two main ones that you'll find most people use is Nano or Vim. Personally, I'm a Nano guy, and a lot of you watching this video might judge me for it, and that's fine. Leave me a comment about that. A lot of people say that they use Vim, but no one's seen them because they haven't figured out how to exit Vim. Leave a comment down below if you have managed to exit Vim, because that's important. We need to know that people have survived. But in reality, both are very solid text editors. Vim requires a little bit more of a commitment to memory. Nano displays a lot of the key bindings down at the bottom of the screen, but both are very good to use. So there's really not much of a difference in either case. But to be able to use either one, you can type Nano and then the name of the file, or VI in the name of the file. Now, say there's something that you don't yet have on your system and you want to get it, you want to download it. You can use the wget command and then a link to the file online that you want to download. This might require some sudo permissions depending on what level you're using this as, but that's basically the command. Now, say you want to be able to copy a file over to another host over SSH. You can use the SCP or the secure copy command. And here on TryHackMe, you can see how exactly you can craft a secure copy command. And basically it goes SCP, the name of the file that you want to copy over, the user of the remote system, at the IP address of that system, colon, and then the path to where you want to store this system. Now, say you want to copy something over from a remote system, you can do basically the same thing, but you can do SCP and then that whole long line about user, IP, and then path, and then the name of the file as you would like it to be saved on your system. So basically, if you're sending it out, you're going to include the name of the file that you're sending first, and then if you're copying it over, you're going to include the name of the file that you want it to be saved as last. Now, sometimes you might want to host your own web server on Python so that way you can retrieve it from other machines as well. You can use Python for that. So for instance, you can use python 3-m http.server, and then that will open up an HTTP server. And it will open up a server on the default port 80 port on your machine. Now, mind you, it will do this in the file system that you are hosting the server on. So it might be helpful to create a dedicated folder to run this server and then make sure that only the files and stuff that you need people to access is in that folder and nothing more. Let's get into processes. And this is where things get a little confusing for me, but it's okay. We're all in this together. Every operating system has a number of automated processes that are running 24/7. Most of those are just the random chores that your operating system needs to execute just to run. And they're fairly innocuous. But sometimes there might be processes that you do want to kill because either they're taking up too much CPU or they might be malicious. Now, each process is given a unique identifier, or a PID, a process identifier. And that's basically how you can make determinations on if you want to kill it or not, is using the PID, and then you just know which process to kill. So if you type PS in, then you will see a list of processes, and that shows the list of processes running under your account. But if you want to see all the processes running on the operating system, type in PSAUX or PSAUX, and that will show you all the processes running on your machine, as well as who owns each process. You're going to see a lot of processes owned by root, and that's fine, as long as they're not malicious. So you do probably need to know about the common processing. Another command you can use is the top command, and it will show you the top processes that are being run on your system. Now, say you see a process that you don't like, you can type the kill and then PID of whatever it is that you want to kill, and it will kill that process for you. Now, there's a lot of times that you'll want to create a process or create an application or something like that you want to be able to start as soon as you start your system. And so that's where you can use the system control command to be able to tell your system that as soon as you boot up, I want this system running. For instance, let's say you want to run an Apache server, and it has the example here on TryHackMe, but run system control or systemctl start Apache 2. And optionally, if you want to stop it, you can type systemctl stop, or say you want to restart, systemctl restart. There's also enable and disable, and enable and disable basically toggle whether or not that will start up or not start up on system boot. Now, you might have a lot of tasks that you want to run automatically, and that's where Crontab comes in. Crontab is pretty cool, and it allows you to schedule specifically when and what frequency you want different command line commands to be run on your system. And it is incredibly easy to use. You literally just front load the command with the time frequency, and then you put the command that you want to run at the end. It's that easy. It's so awesome. And you can literally edit the cron tab anytime by typing in crontab-e, and it will show you all the different cron jobs, and you can edit it from there. Next, let's talk about repositories. And this is a great topic to talk about, especially if you want to make sure that your operating system has the functionality that you're looking for. And that's where the apt command comes in. For instance, the command add-apt-repository, and then the name of the repository that you're wanting to add, that really is something that you can use. Now, TryHackMe goes through a lot of the detail here and how exactly you can add repositories, but I think it's very important to understand that keys are important, and being able to have the correct key will really make or break how you can get the repository added. After all, you want to make sure that you can trust wherever you're downloading from. Once you have the key downloaded, you want to make sure that you have it added to your trusted list, so that way your machine knows that it's trusted, and then from there you'll be able to download the repository itself. Another important command that you should know of is apt-get update and apt-get upgrade, and those will basically update and upgrade all of your repositories to make sure that you're running the most recent version on everything. Next, let's talk about system logs, and everything's going to be stored for the most part, unless you specify otherwise, or in /var/log. This is an important place, especially if you're working with logs for your job. You'll want to be able to know where these logs are so you can ingest them into something like a SIM or any kind of other program that you're using to be able to work with these logs and identify any kind of issues that need to be found in these logs. Another command, if you're not using one of those tools while working with these logs, is grep. Open the log, grep for something interesting, and maybe you'll find it, maybe you won't. But really, for the most part, the amount of data that appears in var log it really balloons very quickly, and that's where a SIM can be really, really helpful. And that's part 3 of Linux. So by now you should be fairly familiar with the Linux operating system. On this video, we kick off Windows, and that's another 3-part series that you should be familiar with. We're finishing up the TryHackMe pre-security pathway, and this is a playlist of all those videos up to this point. So you should try it out. It's nice. With that, we'll see you all next time. Bye.